Welcome to the And She Looked Up Creative Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfiel, and I'm an artist and an entrepreneur. And yes, those two things can go together. This podcast is for the artists, the creatives, and the makers who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. As always, I'm your host, Melissa, and this week, Heather Travis is back for her monthly guest appearance. Happy New Year, Heather.
Happy New Year. Hey, y'all.
We are very glad to have you back today, and today, Heather and I are going to be talking about something that I think is kind of a little near and dear to our hearts, and that is the art of surprising and delighting your customers, clients, followers, listeners, whatever you want to call the people who form your community around your business. We're going to be talking about how to treat them nice.
Yes.
And I think that regardless of how you create, there are so many different business models around creating. You could have people who buy your original art. You could have people who buy products made from your art, like prints or stationery or keyring designs. Or you could be somebody who provides services, like a photographer who does wedding services or portrait services. Or you could be a digital content creator who has viewers on YouTube or readers on your blog, and you monetize through ad revenue. However you decide to earn a living from what you do, there are people out there who have to come to you and support you in order for you to earn a living. Mm-hmm. And those people need to feel like they're appreciated.
Yes.
And so that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. I think we'll just kind of do the bare bones basics of customer service, but then we'll get into like how to really treat those customers who are your regulars or your repeat customers or the people who interact with you on a regular basis, how to show them your appreciation. And to be honest, brainstorming ways in which you can do this is actually a really fun part of being in business. It's one of my favorite things to do. And Heather and I come from a long history of working in bricks and mortar retail, with working with clients on a regular basis. So this is something that we kind of have decades, I guess, of experience. Yes. Yes. As much as I hate to date ourselves, but that's that's the reality. I was thinking about this last night, and I think when it comes to the bare bones of customer service, and maybe we should just, before we get into this, maybe we should just say that not everybody's cut out for customer service. Like,
true.
It's a skill that you have to learn. And if you're one of those people who really just doesn't like being around people or interacting with them, maybe selling your work is not the best business model for you. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Or figure out how you can delegate that to your mom or to your sister or somebody else in your tribe who can help you build your business and has the skills required to deliver on the customer end. So you might have the product, but you might need somebody to help you with that customer service end, I think.
You do need to enjoy the customer service end to a certain extent, because it really comes across if you don't. Especially in a day and age where a lot of our customer service is conducted electronically. And it's so easy for words to come across as being short or dismissive when it's in a direct message or an email if you're not careful. But I do think that there are some keys to customer service that a lot of people maybe don't realize. And to me, customer service is like 50% listening and 50% empathy.
Yeah.
maybe 40% of each and a little more of a few other things. But what do you think of that? To me, it's listening is a huge component of customer service.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's also putting yourself in the customer's shoes. Like what is it that you would like? If you're getting something in the mail, what do you like to see, you know? And I want to see attention to detail. I want to see the packaging is taken care of properly. I love getting a lovely handwritten thank you note. All of those things are really, but those come from putting yourself in your customer's shoes. So that's maybe the empathy part of it, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the empathy part.
Is putting yourself in your customer's shoes. And I think too, also putting your creative hat on. I think that's where some creativity can come bursting out, right? And maybe that surprise and delight is that the handwritten thank you card is, I don't even know. I'm trying to think on my toes right now, but like there's an element where you can be creative on the customer service that that can be another element of you delivering something awesome to your customers that isn't what they expected to get.
It's another way to show your creativity. You are putting yourself out there as a creative entrepreneur. You're selling something, whether it's products, services, or content that is based on your ability to create. And so, yeah, you absolutely should be trying to think outside the box a little bit on how you make those people feel special. I was thinking more along the lines of what happens when something goes wrong for a customer, but maybe that's something we can get into towards the end. We can talk about what happens when things go wrong, because things do go wrong.
Of course.
With all your best intentions, there are things that can go wrong, and then you have a situation in quotation marks. But I think the biggest thing is to really, customer service really is about listening to what your people want. I think a lot of us run our businesses based on what we would want, which is, I don't want to say you shouldn't do that, because I think we all do this because we love it. And if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you are trying to earn a living. So you do have to be delivering something that people actually want. Yeah. Unless you're fine with just having a handful of people who give you a little extra pocket change every now and then. One of the first steps, I think, to that is, do you actually know who your customers are?
Yeah. And hey, Melissa, you and I are talking about research again. Look at that. But that's exactly it. Knowing I know who my customers are. I know, and I like interacting with them. And in fact, one of my favorite things to do is follow up with people and check in on how the painting is doing, because I feel like I put a puppy up for adoption and they're taking care of this beautiful thing. And so to me, that's part of the continued interaction with loyal customers, is continuing to follow up with them. Just because they bought something doesn't mean like done, check, move on. Right? To me, those people, one, are the most important people for my business, because they've already said, I support you and endorse you. So amazing. Can they do that for other people? But also, if nobody else buys my paintings, if I sell no more paintings, the people who did buy them are still really, really important to me. And so I think it's important to keep tabs on your customers. And I mean, don't stalk them, but like keep tabs on them. And if they follow you on Instagram and they have a public Instagram, I encourage following back and sort of keeping up on their lives, because I think it's a nice way to connect with people. And I think especially now, we're all looking for connecting with people who are like-minded and empathetic and, putting things out into the world that we like. And so offering those connecting points online is another way to just expand your network and, put more awesome out into the world, I think.
Absolutely. And, we talk about influencers, and sometimes when people mention influencers, it's with kind of a snarky tone, like get a real job kind of thing. Yeah. But the reality is, everybody who buys from you is an influencer. Every single person. They may not have a social media account, but that person who bought that painting from Heather, they're going to have friends over who are going to see the painting and be like, wow, that's incredible. Who did that? You want those people who bought from you to talk you up, because they can honestly be the biggest source of referrals. Nothing is a bigger source of referrals than a very happy customer.
Absolutely. 100%. And honestly, you could say that 15 times over, and I don't think enough people will hear it loudly enough. But and it doesn't mean bending over backwards. It doesn't mean giving them a discount because they asked for it. That's not that's not about getting a customer happy. That's devaluing your brand, right? It's about making sure that from the outset, you have thought through what the whole entire customer experience is, and they're happy the entire way through. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this even if you are somebody who creates digital content, this still follows through. The people who are going to tell other people about your website, it's not going to be social share groups and things like that. It's going to be that mom who your 5-minute easy dinner recipe solved a major crisis for them. They're going to tell their friends next time they meet up in their mom group, or they're hanging out at the soccer field and be like, oh, I found this recipe on this great website. I'll forward the website to you when I get home. You know, those are the people who are going to talk about you. So if you think if you're a digital content creator, don't feel that this isn't something that doesn't apply to you. It absolutely does.
Absolutely.
Often the people who have the most influence over your business are actually the people who are not active online. So that is something to think about.
Yes. And a brilliant example of that would be like people's moms. And I'm not joking. Like I can see, and I know we've joked about it before, but I can see when my mom is on the golf course in Florida, I can see the traffic spike because she talks about me and my art to every single person that she tees off with. And awesome. Amazing. And that you want that from all of your customers, right? And they don't have to be influencers online. They could literally be somebody's parent. It could be your sister who refuses to be, like, my sister's not on any social media, but hugely I hear from people who are like, your sister told me about you, right? Like that, your family, your friends, those people, you can't undervalue the network that they help build for you.
And particularly if you are like, in your case, you're selling large scale art that is not inexpensive, and it's not an impulse decision for most people what they're buying from you, right? So the bigger the item you sell, or the higher the price point on the item you sell, the more you really are going to have to rely on that network of loyal customers because it's a very good possibility that the people that they are friends with and the people that they spend time with are also the type of people who would be interested in purchasing from you. So those are the kinds of things you have to think about. And that's what knowing who your customer, like, there's two aspects to knowing who your customers is. First of all, yes, you want your avatar, you want to know your demographics. You want to know where they live, what they do, what their income range is. You want to know all those things, but you also want to know who they are. You want to know their names. Like if I were to ask all of you out there right now, can you tell me the names of your 5 best customers? Yeah. Can you do that without having to go search and run through your your sales records and things like that?
And Instagram handles are okay too, if that's the only thing you know, versus if I would agree with you. You need, and you can never underestimate the value of the people who, so to your point, and even something a small scale, like money, people buying art is a very tricky thing, whether it's a $5 thing or a $5,000 thing. And I think the person who interacts constantly with your stuff but doesn't purchase anything, they're just waiting for the moment. And so that person cannot be ignored either. Like there's loyal customers who've actually bought things, and then there's just loyal supporters who are, I know, in my corner and trumpeting for me and my business, but they've never purchased anything. And those are just as valuable.
Yes, in a different way.
So in a different way.
Yes. So I'm going to put this out there as a challenge to all of you who are listening. I want you to, after the episode is over, I want you to go and write down on a list the names of your 5 most valuable customers, clients, listeners, readers, whatever they are to you. Mm-hmm. And if you can easily do 5, I want you to do another 5. I want you to try and get to your top 25 people and just have a list of them and ask yourself, what have I ever done to show them my appreciation? And I'm not trying to sound like I'm berating you or anything, like why haven't you done this? I want you to literally sit there and think about it. Like ask yourself, maybe you've done a lot for them. I don't know. Yeah. But if you've never done anything to mark your appreciation, start thinking about what you could do for that group of people. And we're going to give you some ideas of what you can do.
Yes. Yes. I always think, it's funny in terms of customer service, one of the things, and this is totally in my wheelhouse in terms of like 90s music being my jam, but I always think of the Janet Jackson song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" And that to me, in terms of like, I do sing that song on occasion when I'm like wrapping a bow and putting things. I'm like, "What have you done for me lately?" Because to me, it's just like I'm adding a little sprinkle sauce to this. And and this sounds totally woo woo, but if you feel it as you're putting it in there, putting the energy in there, like it'll come through with how well you package it and the thank you card and all the things. Like no matter what it is that you're doing to show that reward, I think you need to put your whole heart into it. So yes. I think that I'll just lead into where we're going now, that you can't write a thank you note like I did for wedding gifts where you're like, "Thanks for the blender, love, Heather." And your like heart is not in it, right? You really need to, "Thank you so much for this awesome blender. I've made so many different pestos. This is the best thing ever in my life. Love, yes. Heather." Like it needs to be, right? And so you need to put your heart into all of the things that we're saying, because if your heart's not in any of these ideas, don't even bother. Like you really need to believe that the power of customer service and having your heart into it is a good thing. Because that really energy is
a transference of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
yes.
I think that can be said of like all aspects of customer service. If somebody comes in and they're yelling at you and you yell right back, okay, that's just bad energy going back and forth, right?
Yes. Nobody needs that.
Right. And what you want to do in a situation like that is you want to diffuse the bad energy. But when you are trying to show your appreciation for something, you want the good energy to flow.
Yes.
You want to send that out to them because you want them to flow good energy back at you, right? Yeah. I'm waving my arms around here. Nobody can see it. Energy is flowing all over the room. If you've got your list of names, ask yourself what you know about those people. That's a really good place to start, is to do just, we're not talking about become stalkers of these people, but do you know their names? Do you know what they bought from you? Like if you were able to go through and see like, what is it that they buy from you? Is there something specific that they come for? Are they repeat customers because they love your handmade skincare lotion that smells of lavender, and every time their bottle runs out, they're back for another one? Or are they somebody who is purchasing, like I have a customer who purchases my prints for her grandchildren. So every time a new print comes out, she buys it as part of the collection. So I know that's what she's looking for. So those little things, do you know those things about your customers?
I would also say, do you know, so if you're making that list and you're thinking of those people, then think through all of the opportunities that you have to interact with your customers. And then say, okay, so if Melissa's on my list, does Melissa follow me on Instagram? Does Melissa a fan on Facebook? Does she follow me on Pinterest? Where are all the places that I have to interact with each of these people? Because you'll start to see patterns and opportunities will present themselves when you start looking at where your most loyal customers interact with you and where there are opportunities for you to surprise and delight them.
That's right. So let's say that you have a lovely person who has bought one of your paintings. You don't actually really know them in real life. Like they've come, they've bought a painting, and they've left, and you have their name and you know the painting that they bought. And a few months later, they buy a set of your hand-painted Christmas ornaments. Okay, so you have another touch point with them. So now they're a repeat customer. Okay, so you start to pay a little more attention to them. Like, where are they? Maybe you find them on Instagram. Instagram can be a wealth of information. And we're, like I said, we're not talking about stalking here. No. But sometimes you can be on Instagram and you notice that one of your regular customers who buys from you all the time just had a baby. Okay, people put that stuff all over social media. Well, you know what? Maybe it would be really nice if you sent her a card.
Yep.
Or depending on what your product is or what it is you create, maybe Heather might send her like a little nursery print based on one of her, like your Princess and the Pea painting.
Yes.
Could do like a little nursery print and send that to her. Or maybe, you know, if you make skincare or candles, you put together like a little gift basket for mama and baby, you know, like just something for mama to pamper herself and something to kind of recognize the baby as well. And there's so many different little ways that you can do that.
Yes. And I would say it doesn't even have to be something monetary.
No.
The mere acknowledgement. So commenting on the announcement post and saying, this is so beautiful.
Step
I'm
one.
So happy for you.
I bypassed.
No, but I think funny enough, like, you know, we're also quick to just like double tap and heart it and then be like, oh, that's so sweet. And then you just move on. Right. And I think taking the time to make a meaningful comment is actually, like, a lot of people find that hard. And so I think taking that as your first step for sure is a good one, because that can go a really long way.
Yes, because they have no reason to think that you care, but you can show them you care, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's all kinds of things that you can glean from social media, which is why if you have somebody who is a regular or a repeat customer or a high value customer in terms of the amount of money they spend with you, follow them on social media.
Yes.
Like, don't get this whole follower count ratio thing caught in your head. These are the people who are putting groceries on your table. Like, it's okay to follow them.
Yes.
You should follow them. Yeah. And just so that you see those little moments. You see that they just had a birthday, or they just had a baby, or they just got engaged, or they're retiring, or, you know, whatever. Like those big life milestones that are very important to people. If you can recognize that in some way, and as we said, it doesn't have to be money, monetary, and I know a lot of people shy away from monetary, but I will say this about actually giving a gift. It's going to depend on what you do and what the value of your products are. But if you are somebody who sells high ticket items, sending out a $30 gift basket to a client who spends thousands of dollars with you annually is not like that's a no-brainer. Correct. The amount that you are spending compared to the amount that they spend with you is a fraction. And so don't think of it as an expense. It's an investment. It's an investment in that relationship with that person. So,
yes.
You know,
honest to peaches, honestly, a handwritten thank you note. Like, to me, like, a handwritten thank you note, and I have said it to him, like, fold a piece of paper in half. You don't even have to go to the card store. You don't have to go and buy. I mean, I would encourage you to buy from a small local buyer like Melissa, for instance, for a cute thank you card. But still, like, the handwritten note, if I got something scribbled on a napkin, shoved in an envelope that just said, Heather, I was staring at your painting today. It made me really happy. Love me. And it was in this, like, I would be over the moon. That's the greatest gift anybody can give you. And I think this goes towards that empathy, is the thank you note and the reaching out on Instagram is just connecting and letting people know that you're thinking of them.
Yeah.
And I think that really goes a long way. And that, I think, even in terms of, like, one of the things that I did with my Christmas orders this year, I did that surprise and delight for every person who had done a repeat order. They got an extra ornament just in their order. And if they had been a repeat customer multiple times, they got that many more ornaments. So, like, a girlfriend of mine, she ordered 3, she got 6, because she has ordered from me so many times and she's told so many people about all of these ornaments. And she was like, did I place my order wrong? Uh-oh, like, what did I do wrong? I'm like, no, it's all for you, girlfriend. And that little nugget of adding something in was a small cost. The shipping was already covered. Like, it was easy peasy, but that surprise and delight, that made me so happy. It made me even happier than getting the order in the first place, was being able to put that little thing in there as a thank you.
Yes. And you actually just made me think of something else when you mentioned that, is that Another thing you can do to find out where your customers are coming from is that you can ask people, like, how did you hear about me?
Yes.
And so this
Yes.
is how you find out, if everybody comes to you, like, say you have like 10 or 15 people all of a sudden pop up and you're like, where did these people come from? And you ask them and they say, oh, Jane Smith was talking about you today at a party we were at, or at after school pickup or something. Mm-hmm. And so then all of a sudden Jane Smith, okay, maybe she's only ever bought one thing from you, but she's just sent you 10 customers.
Yes.
That makes her a high value customer right there, because she's referring.
And in fact, I would reach out to her immediately. Mm-hmm. Like the moment you hear that when you learn that Jane Smith has sent somebody to you, just sent somebody to you, period.
Yep.
That is a huge win, and you need to acknowledge that with Jane Smith and say, Jane, you just sent Melissa to me. Thank you so much.
Yes.
That Jane's going to keep on talking about you all day, every day.
That's right.
And that's not the reason you're doing it. The reason you're doing it is to actually acknowledge, like, it goes back to kindergarten, but remembering our P's and Q's, like saying thank you is a really underused tool.
It is.
And we all need to say thank you a lot more and mean it.
Yes. Saying thank you and saying I'm sorry.
Yes.
are two key things in customer service.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And this is something that happens in the corporate world all the time, particularly in sales. Like this is something that people who are in sales as a profession, they know this. If somebody sends them a hot lead and it turns into something, they send something to that person who it could be something, depending on the volume of dollars, but it could be flowers, it could be a gift basket, it could be taking them out to dinner. Why do you think big corporations have boxes?
Boxes. I was just thinking all the box seats
at hockey arenas, okay? Because they want to be able to take those really high value clients out and show them a good time. Yeah. Okay. And in the corporate world, to be quite honest, high value clients expect that. The people who are in those industries, they know that high value clients and high value customers, they need work. They're an investment, and not to try to take away the personal contact type of thing, because that's important too. And most of us who are doing this, we're doing this because we reject that high corporate ladder life, right? And for us, the relationship is really important, but you do have to show how that relationship is important to you, and you have to make those people feel like they matter, because that's all, we're humans. That's really important. We want to feel like we matter to somebody.
Yes. Right. Yes. And honestly, to carry that, because I've, in my corporate days, I have sat in really, really fancy restaurants at really nice steakhouses, eating really expensive meals. But the most important thing that I got across the table from the people who I was meeting with was eye contact and meaningful conversation. Yeah. And so we could have been having that over a Big Mac. It really, I would have maybe, I love a good Big Mac, but I would have
preferred the Big Mac, to be honest.
Exactly. But it's not what I'm looking for is eye contact and meaningful conversation around what is meaningful to us as a pairing. And that can be, it can be all different things. I've had really meaningful conversations with clients of mine who I don't know from Adam, but I'm in their home hanging artwork.
Yeah, right? That's a very personal thing to be in
very
somebody's home.
Thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like standing inside. I remember I was standing in a woman's like brand new, the nursery that she's just decorated for a baby, and she's like holding a babe in arms, and I'm hanging a painting over this child's crib. And to me, I'm like, oh my God, like the fact that I am part of this.
Yeah,
is mind-blowing to me. And I had to acknowledge it to her, and I got a little teary when I said it, and she was like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. But that moment of connection and acknowledging that, I think, goes very far. We have since, she's referred lots of people to me. It's not about that, but that's a great side benefit. But we connected on something very, very small. We had an intimate sort of moment there, right? And it went beyond the artwork. And I think that's really what you and I are trying to get at, is that this is the surprise and delight, the thank you. All of this is beyond the product. It's beyond the content. It's beyond the widget. uh, it takes it to the next level. And that, I know we're not going to talk about complaints right now, but that it's setting things up that way will help you when shit hits the fan, if it ever does, right? In
Absolutely.
terms of cleaning stuff.
Absolutely. You absolutely get the benefit of the doubt if something
Yeah.
goes wrong, if you already have a really strong
Yeah.
relationship with that client or that
Yeah.
customer. So 100%. For me personally, it's just knowing somebody took the time. Like, it's one thing to send a quick text or an
Yeah.
email, but if somebody sends me a handwritten card, and to be very frank, that's all it takes to make me
Oh,
very
ditto.
happy.
Ditto.
um, I know that, okay, they took the time out of their day to go get a card somewhere or make a card. Some
Yep.
people make cards. They took the time to sit down and write a message in it. Then they had to go to the post office. They had to get a stamp. They had to mail it. Like, there was a lot of energy and effort
Yeah.
involved in sending me that card, far more than if they just sat down at their laptop and sent me an email. And that means a lot to me. It's like, wow, like they were thinking about me. There was a whole process where they were thinking about me. I was in their thoughts.
Yes.
And that means a lot to me. Like, it wasn't just a 30-second moment. It was probably something that happened over the course of a couple of days. And that's,
I keep handwritten thank you notes.
I
I
do
don't keep
too,
I don't I
absolutely.
don't keep much, honestly. Like, I purge so much constantly, but I keep handwritten thank you notes. I love yeah, they
I
make
have
it's
a
like
blue
yeah.
file folder box under my desk where I keep them all. And if we were on video right now, I would pull it out and show everybody. It's
Yeah.
and I've kept every single one that I've ever
Yeah.
received. It's just something, yeah,
Hmm.
something very meaningful about it. And that is, from a cost perspective, like, okay, you can
Yeah.
make the card yourself. That takes your
Yeah.
time, or you could spend $6 or $7 and buy a really nice card, and the cost of a stamp to mail
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Not a big investment. So
No.
and that should be part of your marketing budget, to be quite honest. Like, from a business
Totally.
perspective, you
Yeah.
should have a line in your marketing budget for things like that, like customer
Yes.
delight.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
It's part of my average marketing and advertising,
Yeah.
and I have, and included in that is thank you cards, stamps, washi tape, all the packaging. I have all of those things are in there
Mm-hmm.
because it's a legitimate business expense, and as soon as you put it into that column on the Excel spreadsheet as a legit business expense, to me it's like an extra little asterisk beside it, in that this is essential for your business.
Yeah, it really is about your energy, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be about the money. It
No.
has to be about coming from a place where you truly are grateful for these people. And I always say, I mentioned in a previous episode, I really resonate with Pat Flynn because everything he does comes from a place of service. And that's really how I try to operate my businesses. I am here to serve the
Mm.
people who want to purchase from me, listen to me, read my stuff. Like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to serve them. I'm trying to make their life better in some way. I'm trying to show them that they're important to me. And so that flows through to thanking them for a sale, or thanking them for a referral, or just thanking them for being lovely.
Yes.
There
Yes.
is nothing to say you can't drop somebody a little note, that a regular customer that, maybe you haven't heard from, or maybe they've gone quiet on social media or something, and just drop them a little note and say, hey, I was thinking about you today, and I noticed you've been quiet recently, and I hope all is well.
Exactly. Yes, and it's all those little things, like, oh my gosh, I love seeing all the pictures of your cute new puppy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
boom, that's it. You just said something nice and you interacted with them. And I just, going beyond emojis, I think is a really, I feel like we should all take this as our challenge for 2021, is to go beyond emojis and, like,
Use your
actually have,
words.
yeah, use your words. Man, it's like kindergarten again, right? Use your words.
Say thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, breathe deep. It's okay. Yeah. And use our words. And maybe some of us need to sit in the corner for a while, but yes, we need to use our words. And I think using them and leading with empathy, and being really conscious of the power of the words, and
Yeah.
that a few small words really do mean a huge amount.
Yes.
Um, and I know, funny enough, like even like this week's been a crazy week in Ontario, and text messages in my girlfriends groups, like little notes of support, just, hey girls, thinking of ya. Those go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And if they go a long way in your friend circle, imagine what a little thing could do in your wider circle of
Yeah.
tribe, supporters, community of people. Like if you know the value it gets when it's a girlfriend, imagine if it's somebody who you think doesn't care,
Yeah.
and it turns out they do.
I'm just nodding emphatically
Yeah.
here on the other side of the mic. All right, so now let's get into the fun stuff. Let's talk about the things that you can do to really show those. You've figured out who your most important customers are. I mean, they're all important, but obviously we're talking about the ones who are loyal, who are repeat, who really love your stuff. And this kind of goes to the whole Kevin Kelly 1,000 True Fans thing. And most of you are probably aware of the 1,000 True Fans, but for those of you who aren't, the Coles Notes version is that anyone can run a successful business if they have 1,000 true followers, fans, believers, people who will buy anything that you put out. It takes 1,000. You have to get them one person at a time, but essentially if you can get those 1,000 people who are willing to purchase every release that you make, every time you have maybe not an original painting, people's walls would fill up, but when you do like print releases, or you put your notebooks on print on demand or things like that, the whole that whole premise of nurturing those 1,000 true fans and making them want to stay and be around and be raving fanatics. And I mentioned this in my previous episode at the beginning of the year on the things that were inspiring me now, but a great book to help you with this is Pat Flynn's Superfans. He really kind of takes that whole concept and talks about all the different ways you can interact with that group of core loyal supporters. But let's talk about some of the things that we really like to do. So Heather, what is one of your favorite ways to show your appreciation?
So, I mean, we've covered thank you notes. I think that's we've beaten that horse to death. But thank you notes for sure. And then I would say a lot of it is offering. So I love to offer discounts to people who've already purchased, giving them first access.
First access is a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one. Yeah.
I like giving people first access. And then the other thing, so as I mentioned, like the surprise and delight. So if you've ordered something once before, you're ordering it again, I like to include a little something extra in that package so that they feel extra rewarded for that purchase. And then something funny enough that I'm trying that's new, and it's not so much it's headed in the premium access way. So I would love to start doing some gated, like Zoom, art classes, things that people have to, pay and register for. But I sort of feel in order to get to that point, I need to put myself out there for free for everybody. And so I'm going to do a series starting this Saturday of free Saturday morning live Instagram art classes. And it'll be fun. And it's just a half hour and just putting sort of good juice out into the universe. And to me, that was sort of part of the surprise and delight, and just another way to establish really fun, meaningful connection with people who have expressed an interest in wanting to know Heather the artist more. And so I've said, come on in. And I think a thank you note is also a come on in. I think there's lots of ways to sort of invite people into the fold. I like to think of it. Do you remember in elementary school when you played with that big colorful balloon and everybody stood in a circle and you like whooshed it up and whooshed it down, and then you whooshed it up and then you sat underneath it and you had like the big...
Oh, the parachute thing.
Yeah, the parachute thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like every time, those are your 1,000 people, right? And so every time you whoosh it up, there's like some new person that's grabbing a hold of this circle. And like when you sit back down and you're underneath this big colorful tent, who are all those people in there with you? And so I feel like doing something live and free that's for everybody is like whooshing it up and inviting more people into this colorful tent with me,
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah. So I think those are some key ways. I think it depends on the business you offer. I know in our retail business store, we have a loyalty program, but that's not based on loyalty to the business. It's on loyalty to yourself. So if you use a tracker, like an app tracker to track how far you ride, how long you ride, all of those things, we reward you for hours on your bicycle. And not how fast you went, not how far you went, but just time spent. And people love that surprise and delight of, hey, you spent lots of time on the thing that we are encouraging you to do. Here's a surprise and delight, a reward, a discount for that good behavior, which I think is a really
That's a fun way to do it. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Which is awesome. We enjoy doing that, and customers really enjoy doing that too. Like they work towards it, and it's a personal goal, and it has nothing to do with spending money in our business. It has to do with doing the thing that our business promotes. And I think that's a nice way to think about loyalty programs too, is that it doesn't have to be the more you spend, the more you save, buy things with me to get this. Encourage what it is, like what is your business? So say you have a cooking blog, right? Encouraging people to try new recipes and saying, I tried 10 new recipes this week, which gives me access to a discount on something, a cookbook or whatever, right? And so what activity are you encouraging people to do through your business? And how can you use that activity and that encouragement to reward people, not just rewarding people for spending money with you?
Yes, that's a really good point. You want to form a community around what you do. And community doesn't always have to mean people who spend money, because what can happen with that community is if they feel like they're really valued and supported, they will spend money. Like that will come. It might take a little longer, but it will come. That's where you're nurturing those people to become part of your 1,000 True Fans. And there's so many ways you can do that. And that's a really good idea. I like that.
And I would also say too, in terms of money, the customer who spends $1,000 and the customer who spends $20,000, they both deserve the same high level of customer service and experience, full stop.
Yes.
And so rewarding people for the dollar publicly, like to me, that's like announcing your favorite child. That is just not going to go over well. We are going to have trauma issues in the future. Whereas the person who spends the $20,000 throwing something in on their order, not because it's a matter of policy, but just as a recognition that they spent so much, but there's no difference in the customer service. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short, is that their customer loyalty is based on the dollar, and that is a wrong way to operate.
Yeah, and you might choose behind the scenes to show appreciation to those high dollar value customers differently, but to anybody who is coming to you for the first time for whatever reason, whether it's to buy a $5 sticker or to buy a $100 signed art print, it shouldn't matter. They should experience the same level of customer service. They should feel like they had the most enjoyable experience, because you know what? The person who spends $5 on a sticker with me, that could be an 11-year-old kid who has saved up their allowance and mom is letting them buy something on the internet for the first time. Okay? That girl deserves to have a really positive experience, because that's a lot of money for her. This is a very exciting thing. She's buying her first thing on the internet. Her mom is finally letting her buy something, all her friends get to buy things on the internet, right? As opposed to, in some ways, she could be even more valuable than that person who's very blasé about shopping on the internet, right? Like
Totally. And that's the funny thing, is that I've had the people who spend say $10 or $20, those people are almost more enthusiastic than some of the people who spent like $500 on a painting. And it's a fascinating thing to see. But I would also like it when you were talking immediately, I was thinking of Pretty Woman. You made a big mistake.
Yes.
Big. And it's exactly that. Like, don't all of your customers are Julia Roberts, and they could be like, you cannot judge a book by its cover. And I think that's that comes with the leading with empathy, right? Like really.
Yes, I was just going to say, this is empathy. This is thinking about putting yourself in that person's shoes. And the reality is most of us will never know the shoes that our customers are walking in. So you do have to try and think of the different scenarios. Like if they're having a bad day, like maybe they are having a bad day, and there could be so many reasons they're having a bad day. And some of them could be really sad, quite frankly. You don't know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, you know, that having that empathy for that person who spends the $5, you know, if you watched, I think we spoke about this before, but if you watched Emily in Paris, where she gets dismissed for her little charm on her handbag, and you know, and she's talking to the designer, like, this was my way in high school of being able to be part of your world.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that's what that $5 purchase is for that person. It's their way to have access to a world that they aspire to be part of.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, if you stomp on that, you are effectively stomping on somebody's dream.
Yes, absolutely. And you don't, I think, you know, we talked about influencers, but I consistently realize that, and that's funny enough, part of the motivation for doing the art classes on Saturday is they're called shitty art classes for adults. and it's all because, like, I have so many people reach out to me that there's statements around, you're so brave for putting your art out there. I used to love art, but I don't do it anymore. And to me, those are things that we are all artists. We all have the opportunity to create something, and it might not be in a museum. And it might not go anywhere beyond your own home, but you should still be encouraged to do it. And I think stomping on people, especially as a creative, right? If you belittle your customers, they're coming to you for that creativity. Yeah. And you should respect, one, that, but two, that maybe the sticker that they buy from you or the free art class that they participate in, that could be their launching pad for them to do something awesome. 100%. And how cool would it be if you were the person that helped that, lifted that unintentionally, just by being awesome and delivering awesome customer service, versus being the dick who squashes somebody's dream, right? Like, you don't want to be that person.
No, you don't. So we mentioned loyalty cards or some kind of loyalty program. That's a good one that you can offer. Another one that I really like to do is my newsletter list. So the people on my newsletter list, to me, they are my most engaged customers. They are the ones who want to interact with me regularly. And I feel like for that reason, they deserve a little extra TLC. And this is sort of like, you know, this drives me crazy, especially because we just came out of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all these software companies that I have monthly, not memberships, but, you know, like Adobe, I have to pay monthly subscriptions. That's the word I'm looking for, right? You know, all of a sudden they come out with like a smoking deal on Black Friday or something, but you don't get it because you're already a customer. This is only for new customers. And it's like, well, what the hell?
Yes. I remember getting that at TD Bank once. They were giving out iPods. This was iPods were really big. And they were giving out iPods for new customers. And I was like, I have been a customer for 20 years. Where's my goddamn iPod? Like,
it's phone companies, your mobile service provider, they are notorious for this. And it's backwards customer service.
Totally.
It costs you more to acquire a new customer than it does to keep a long-term customer. And so, you know, put some energy into the people who are there day in, day out. They are the ones who deserve the little extra rewards. They're there all the time. So one of the things I like to do with my newsletter is that is a place where I can surprise and delight those people, often very inexpensively, but very effectively. So my newsletter list, they get my absolute best Black Friday deal. The deal that they get through my newsletter is better than anything I will offer anywhere else. You know, but you can give them, this is where you can offer first looks.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Patreon is another platform that works well for this. The people who pay monthly to have access to you, they get first access to like
YouTube releases,
tutorials, new releases. You're releasing a new sticker collection or a new print collection. Okay. They get first access to it. Nobody else gets to buy it for 6 months. or they get the only access to it. Like
Yes.
only my patrons get access to this numbered print set,
Yep.
or something like that. Like that people, your 1,000 true fans will pay a lot of money to have premium access to you, or to have first access
Yes.
to you. And don't underestimate that. I think a lot of us really do, but there are definitely some artists that I follow where I'd be like, you know what, I would pay to get their stuff before anybody else.
Yeah.
Another one that's really popular is showing the inside of your sketchbook, or the behind the scenes. There are a lot of people out there who are really interested in your process,
Yeah.
and how you get to the finished product, and there's money in that. To be blunt.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But I mean, think of it. Think of like someone like Picasso. You know, people will pay for like a study or a sketch that he's done that later becomes a full blown painting, right? Because it's part of his process. So there's things you can do there with first access, premium access, those kinds of things that really encourages that 1,000 true fans, and that can really delight those people who are supporting you on a consistent basis. Like,
totally. And I think any group, like I'm a patron on Patreon for a number of vlogs and whatever, and I love being part of those community. I chomp at the bit. I know on Fridays, for instance, there's a vlog that we follow that for every other Friday, we get first access to a video that is a week ahead of other people. And it's like Thursday night TV in our house used to be with Friends and Seinfeld and all of the things. Like literally, we know on Friday it's Delos Friday. And that's what we're doing on Friday after work, is watching an episode, because we're so excited to be first in line. But that community, and we've seen it particularly in the pandemic, funny enough, is these communities, your 1,000 people, boy, oh boy, do they rally together and rally behind you. And so I think this surprise and delight and giving people access, inviting people in, I think it's one of the best opportunities you have to grow your business, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. A few other things that you can do that don't have to cost a lot of money. You can include an inexpensive freebie with the order. This is going to depend very much on what it is that you create or sell. I have stickers. I have a freebie sticker that goes in every order, and I change that sticker up every few months so that it's different, so that if I do have a repeat customer, they don't get the same sticker in their order. And I mean, that is very inexpensive for me, and it fits very much in with what I do, because I sell stickers and prints and things like that. But think about what you could do in your business. A lot of creatives, I have noticed in recent months, are finding ways they're trying to make their businesses more sustainable. So they are finding ways to use their scraps or their bits and turn those into things that they can give away. So one artist that I follow, she makes handmade pouches. She has started using her fabric scraps to make matching scrunchies.
Right.
And that's brilliant. Another artist, she uses her extra cardstock. She makes bookmarks and sends those out as freebies, which is actually something I was thinking of doing, because I
so cute.
Bookmarks. Yeah, so it's a great way.
Waste not, want not. Like
exactly. So you're not wasting anything, and you're sending something out into the world that somebody's going to really enjoy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Another thing that you can do is free shipping. So depending on what platform you sell on and where you sell, some platforms really encourage you to offer free shipping included in your price. But a lot of people choose not to do that. But maybe that's something you can do for a repeat customer. You can send them a coupon code so that their next order, they don't have to pay the shipping, or they get a discount off their next order, or send them a discount code for their birthday, or just little things like that you can do that just show them that you're paying attention and that you value the fact that they have purchased from you. And those things can also encourage second and third purchases. So that's something to think about too.
And I would say in the free delivery, funny enough, in free shipping, I would include free delivery in that. And obviously within, your region, and we're not supposed to be traveling very far and all of those things. But
If you can offer your own curbside pickup, or curbside drop off, I guess.
Curbside
You just drop
exactly.
things off.
And I've done a bunch of those this year. And I'll tell you, just popping onto somebody's porch and standing at the end of the driveway, having a conversation with somebody who only knows me from Instagram has been hugely valuable. And that would not have happened if I had just said, like, yeah, I'll just pop it in the mail to you. It would have, like, it's so much, doing the free delivery offered a connection opportunity, even though it was just porch drop.
Yes. So funny true story. This summer, there is a YouTuber that I follow in the snail mail world and journaling world, and she creates these absolutely beautiful packages of vintage papers and things to use in your projects. And I've wanted to order one for eons, but they've always been a little bit out of reach of my budget. But this summer I decided to treat myself. And I knew she was in Canada. I purchased one from her. The order went through and it was quite late at night, but I got an email from her a few minutes later. And she said, Melissa, I just looked at your address and you are literally like 3 blocks away from where I live.
Cool.
And she's like, can I refund your shipping and drop this off for you? And the shipping was quite expensive because shipping in Canada is expensive. Yeah. And I was like, absolutely. And she did a little curbside drop off. She packaged it up really nicely, left it on my front porch, rang the doorbell, and then left. And then she texted me from the foot of the driveway and said, I just dropped your package off. Yeah. And it was so sweet and lovely. And she saved me money. And I mean, obviously if she had lived far away, she wouldn't have been able to do that. But the fact she still could have just taken the $15 for the shipping and stuck it in a mailbox and been done with it. And you never know who lives around the corner from you. Like, you just don't know. And she literally is 3 blocks from my house. So it was really quite funny.
Yes. And I often, one of the things that I do with delivery, as soon as if people are, obviously depending on COVID regulations, but as I said, I offer to hang the paintings as well. Mm-hmm. And so come in,
that's a nice extra touch.
I bring my own hammer. I bring all the hardware. I make sure to have, I have all the things so that I'm in your house safely. But it also, this is the funny thing, is that it satisfies me making sure that the painting is taken care of properly, but also it's part of that customer service in that, here you go, it's hung properly. It's safe there. For instance, it's safely hung above your child's crib, for instance, right? Yes. I have done this properly. Yeah, that just goes part of that customer experience. So I think if there's any way you can add the human touch to it, do it. Especially now. I think we're all craving a little bit of connection.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's talk about what to do when things go wrong. Because this is actually an opportunity to surprise and delight, believe it or not.
Yes.
So I think what actually spurred this episode on is over the holidays, I'm in a lot of Etsy seller groups on Reddit and Facebook. And over the holidays, I actually had to just exit because it was just a giant complain fest. Everybody was just stressed out to the max over the shipping nightmare that was Christmas. There was just so many people calling their customers Karens and just being miserable, and just generally it was just misery filled, and that's not what I want before Christmas.
No. Or ever, really,
to be quite honest. What really struck me was how many people really didn't know how to deal with the situation. And it was a stressful situation. There's no doubt about it. And there was really nothing that could be done about it. That was what made it stressful for all sides, is that it's just, there was a huge influx of online shopping this year. There are political reasons why the United States Postal Service is having issues there, but there was so many things that were just out of the hands of small business owners. And unfortunately, what happens in those situations is that quite often the customers are frustrated too, and they take it out on the person who shipped the product, and it just fuels misery everywhere. What I was really struck by was just the way that people were handling it. And some people were handling it very well, but others were not being very nice to their customers, to be quite frank. And this is where the listening and the empathy comes in. I spent 10 years in frontline retail. I have had people abuse me. I have had people physically
Yep.
try to
Yes.
abuse me.
Yep.
I have experienced it all, okay? But 99 times out of 100, when somebody is complaining, they are complaining because they didn't have the experience they wanted to have. Okay, let that sink in for a minute. Something somewhere in the whole experience failed, and you want to fix that for them and for the next person. So really, when somebody comes to you and think about us in our businesses, okay? So all those Reddit threads and Facebook threads that I was talking about, they were sellers who were extremely frustrated and needed to vent. Okay, we all need to vent when we're frustrated. That is very human. So when somebody comes in or contacts you and they haven't had the experience that they wanted to have, they need to tell somebody. They need to get it out of their system. And your job is to listen. Okay, it's not to jump in. It's not to interrupt them. It's not to tell them how they're wrong or how you did this. It's just to shut up and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah.
Okay, without judging. And remind yourself that something has disappointed them.
Yes.
And try to figure out in their tirade or complaint or whatever, what it is that fell through the cracks. Like, what is causing them to be this upset?
Yeah.
And this is where the empathy kicks in as well, right? Like, you have to put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel if, let's say, somebody used an example of a Chanel bag, right? There are two kinds of people who buy Chanel bags. There are the people who buying a Chanel bag is no big deal. They have 10 Chanel bags. Like, it's just part of their lifestyle. And then you have the person who has saved up for years to be able to buy that Chanel bag. That person expects a certain kind of experience around that. And if they don't get it, they've just dropped a serious amount of money and the experience fell very short for them.
Very short. Yeah.
And how would you feel if that was you? You would be upset, right? So you need to vent. And that's what your job as the owner of your business is to let them do. Let them vent. When they have vented, that's when you step in and you start to talk. And I mean, there's a difference between somebody being abusive to you and somebody who's just venting. They're two very different things. If somebody is coming in and calling you names and swearing and threatening violence, that's totally different.
That's totally different.
And you handle that very differently.
Yes.
I'm talking about somebody who's coming in and saying, I spent all this money and it was broken and I'm so upset and, I wanted to give this to my son for his birthday and blah, 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 right? Like, they're upset. They didn't have that experience. So that's what your job is, to listen, to provide empathy. And one of the best things you can do is to say you're sorry.
Oh my God, yes.
That can diffuse a situation in seconds, and you have to mean it. You have to say, I am so sorry that happened.
Yes.
Okay? You're not admitting guilt or saying that what you did was wrong. What you're saying is, I am sorry that happened. I am sorry that you had that experience.
Yes, and I'm sorry that you're feeling this way.
Yes, I'm sorry you're feeling this way. That must have been so frustrating for you and so disappointing for your son.
Exactly.
Here's what I can do to make this right for you. Yeah. Okay? And then make it right.
Yes. Because I think in terms of listening to people, the very act of acknowledging, like, this is, I mean, it's human psychology 101, really. The person is venting because they want you to hear them. And so you saying, I have heard you, and I am really sorry that this experience happened. Yeah. You have immediately validated their feelings. And
Absolutely.
That is all people are looking for, is to feel validated.
And in almost every situation, once you do that, the hot air just deflates. It just deflates. And they're like, okay, somebody's listening, right? Yeah. And they just calm right down. And especially if you're saying to them, let's make this right. Yeah. Let's see what we can do to fix the situation. And then fix the situation. Like, if you screwed up, because we screw up, and a lot of us, there are a lot of people out there who don't like to admit that they screwed up, but if you screwed up, you need to step up and say, we screwed up. We mixed up your order.
I did it. I did it with my Christmas orders. I missed a Christmas delivery. I took it, and I even said to the woman, of course, and this was one of those lovely end of the driveway conversations. I said, I went back in my notebook and I said, I'm so sorry. I said, your name is there and there's no check mark. Like, I am so sorry. And complete transparency, and apologized profusely, offered to refund her money. She refused it. And so she got an extra ornament as part of her gift because I felt so badly that I had forgotten. But immediately was diffused, because mistakes do happen.
Yeah.
Like, I think as soon as you come to it with they're human, I'm human, how can we humans, gosh, this is like, we could take this episode globally right now, but you really need to. And I've also had it. I had one painting that I sold, and there was a bump in the painting that somebody they didn't. I think the words were, I just can't not see
the bump.
This one thing, right? And I felt so badly. It has nothing to do with the quality of the work. It has nothing to do. It was what they saw in the art. I didn't want them disappointed in the art, and so the first thing I did was obviously say I'm very sorry, even though I'm not apologizing for anything. I'm sorry that this is the experience you're having, right? Is sort of the acknowledgement. But the first thing I did was refund the money, and we will solve this. And until we decide what to do, I don't want you to feel like you've spent money on something that you're unhappy with. And that was the immediate resolution that we took. I refunded him money without even offering it. Like, it was just an immediate, they're disappointed. I don't want them unhappy with this experience. I'm going to refund their money until we figure out what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that made them feel very happy about the decision. Like, I got a lovely note back. That was so kind of you. It's not expected. All of those things. So,
and I surprised and delighted her. You took a bad situation and you turned it around, and she will probably be a loyal client moving forward.
And has come back and made other purchases. Exactly.
There you go. Yeah.
And there's no telling anybody, oh, well, that was the first painting I bought. You should have seen what happened. Like, there none of that comes into it. And I think, and this is me putting my PR hat on, but in terms of the shipping debacle, and I know you, Melissa, did a very good job at this, but one of the things that you as a seller and part of your customer service is that we all knew, for instance, that shipping was going to be delayed. And so you had the opportunity to stop people from getting upset that shipping is delayed by telling them, shipping is really delayed. So I'm popping this, and thank you so much for your order. I'm popping this in the mail. Normal shipping time is this, but did you know that this is happening? And it might be longer. They've been forewarned, right? And so you do a lot to diffuse it.
This was a big thing that was really apparent over the whole shipping debacle is, I remember in September, Canada Post put out a notice saying, get out there, do your Christmas shopping early because it's going to be, delivery times are going to be late. And as a business owner, when I heard that, I mean, that's why I put my box Christmas cards on sale so early, because I wanted people to be able to buy them early, get them in the mail early, and I had to get them to them first, and then they had to write the cards and get those in the mail early, and everybody could get their stuff on time. But the other thing I did is anybody who ordered from me after the first week of December, as Heather said, I messaged them before I filled the order, and I said, if this is a Christmas present, I need you to know that I cannot guarantee delivery by December 24th. Are you okay with that? And if they replied back and said, yes, I filled the order and out it went. Yeah, it meant I lost a few sales. But you know what? I would rather lose a few sales than have people really upset with me and have to go through the whole thing of trying to, should I refund their order? Should I tell them that they have to wait until shipping evens out? Like all that stuff. So you have to think ahead.
Yes.
That's part of customer service, is thinking ahead.
Exactly. And honestly, to your point, Melissa, that's so brilliant, is that you might have lost sales. Yes. But what you're looking for in every sale is a positive customer interaction. Mm-hmm. And so, no, you didn't, quote, lose a sale. You still had a positive customer interaction.
Yes,
and if you had gotten that sale, would it have turned into a negative customer because they didn't get what they wanted? Possibly.
Exactly. It would have. So, because it would have been a situation I couldn't solve. I can't solve the fact.
And you cannot, if you're the one responsible for the negative customer interaction, it's very hard coming back from that versus saying, I'm going to stop you from having that And this is the positive that we're encountering right now. You saying you might not get it by Christmas, and them saying, oh, okay, then cancel my order. That is a very positive thing to have happen, because they're going to remember that and they're going to come back to you for more, as opposed to saying, yeah, I got it and I didn't get it in time, I'm never buying from them again.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So that's a big part of customer service, is looking forward and seeing where the pitfalls might be. Like, where could things trip up in your process? And if shipping is something that you know is going to be an issue, leap ahead of it.
Yeah.
So that you make it a non-issue. And if production is going to be an issue, leap ahead of it. So, like, you know, say that all of a sudden your custom mugs that you make, where people can customize them. Let's say normally your production time is 5 days per mug to get it out there. But all of a sudden something happens in your production scale. Maybe you can't get your mugs, or maybe you're overwhelmed with orders, and all of a sudden your schedule goes from 5 days to 10 days. Okay. Like, if you can see that happening, if you can see the bottleneck, jump ahead of it. Start letting them know, you know what, production has been delayed. The orders are taking 10 days. I can't, you know, whatever you need to do, get the message out to people who are buying so that they know. And once they're forewarned, they're forearmed, you know, like it's, So customer service is much bigger than just putting a pretty sticker on your package and putting it in the mail. So,
and too, you know, funny enough, just as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, the customer service that you deliver through like positive experience, a lot of the complaints that we as small business owners, I hear from a lot of people, is don't they know there's a human here? Mm-hmm. And I want you to put the human out front. And by putting the human out front, one, people will see it, but you also, there's a human who's complaining. There's a human who's on the other end of that. And so that, when people say, don't they know there's a human here? Well, they're human too. And maybe somebody just passed away, or their dog just vomited all over the brand new carpeting, and right. And like, and then the recipe didn't work. And this is like the culmination of events. And so the email to you saying the recipe doesn't freaking work. It's not against you, the human. It's not from them, the human. It's like this response. And so I think if we lead with like, how can a human respond to this, and put yourself out there first. I think this is one of the things I've been talking to a lot of businesses about, this is that I know it's hard to put yourself out there, and you don't need to hang out your dirty laundry and show all sides of you. But as a small business owner, if you can let people in a little bit behind the curtain, it goes a really long way in them seeing you as a whole human who is helping their lives get better through the product or service that you deliver, and not just as a product or service. So
yes. If you want people to remember that there's a human behind the screen, you have to show them that there's a human behind the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very, very key.
Yeah. Yes. And I think too, you know, revealing yourself and showing yourself a little bit more of yourself, I think that will help you also. I think
helps the 1,000 true fans. Like,
that's exactly it. Yeah. I think that will help build the people who are most attracted to you will come to you more easily.
So to wrap this up, I was listening to the Goal Digger podcast last week, and there was a quote that was mentioned in this podcast that really struck a chord with me. And I mentioned it to Heather when we were planning this episode. And it is that grace changes every vessel it flows through. In other words, put yourself in other people's shoes and find some empathy. But that's a really powerful quote to think about, is that just come from a place of service.
Yeah.
When you're in a situation where things are maybe not going the way that you want them to, just remember to approach it with grace. Mm-hmm. Whenever I hear the word grace, I think of that Seinfeld episode with Elaine.
Grace, I've got grace.
I've got grace. But honestly, some people have it and some people don't. But you can cultivate it if you don't have it. But just take a moment, take a deep breath, and just remind yourself that as much as you are a person on one side, there is that person on the other side. And if you can show grace to them, and that grace flows through them, it changes them as the vessel.
Yes.
It changes you as the vessel, and it can completely change the situation and the relationship. So I think that's a very powerful thing, and I think the world could use a little bit of grace and empathy right now.
Yes, we could use bucket loads of it, and that I think if creatives are the people who lead the way in this, like stop referring to
the ones who lead the way.
We need to stop referring to our customers like the okay Karen, okay Boomer. I think that needs to stop, and I think we need to like all of the negatives. You know, funny enough, I heard, and this was years ago, and it's really stuck with me. Funny enough, it was a radio announcer in Toronto. He was talking about something, and he said, you know, my dad said to me once, instead of looking at somebody and saying, oh, wow, look at them on vacation again, in a, like whatever it is, when you're saying it, flip it around and say, wow, look at them on vacation again. How blessed are they? Mm-hmm. And so you're not diminishing that you would like to go on vacation, right? But you're acknowledging it in a positive. And I think there's a way that we can all acknowledge the creative in one another, acknowledge the human in one another. I think there's so many more ways to do that. And I think as creatives, I feel like we should lead the charge in that nothing awesome creatively comes without emotion. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like we're the ones, you know, with food on our aprons and paint on our sleeves and marker on our nose that should lead the charge on saying, like, let's just drop the bullshit and maybe be nice to one another a little bit more.
That's right. The things that we create have the ability to bring joy and comfort and happiness and beauty to people. And so their interactions with us as humans should also be able to bring those things to them. And that's something really important to remember. If you are putting your art or your creativity out there from a place of service or from a place where you want to help people or bring some joy or beauty into their lives, remember that when they interact with you as the artist, you need to exude those things. You need to send that energy back out to them. And I am not a woo-woo person. Anybody who knows me knows that. But I do truly believe that the energy we send out is the energy we get back.
Yeah, like just try and smile at somebody and have them not smile back.
Exactly. Just go for a walk and you pass somebody on the street. If you smile at them and they don't smile back, like, then they're probably having a very bad day and move on. But odds are good. They're going to be like, oh, wow, that person smiled at me. I'll smile back at them.
Exactly. Yes. And even if you're wearing a mask, they can see the crinkle in your eye.
You can tell. Yes. And you know what? After you've listened to this episode, go sit down and make that list of your 25, 10, 15, however many you have, customers who really support you and are truly loyal to what you do. And then have a really pleasant afternoon of brainstorming things that you can do that could surprise and delight them. And it could be as simple as, like we said, just a handwritten note. It could be as simple as a free little sticker. It could be, there's so many things you could do. It doesn't have to cost you a ton of money, but just something to show them that you appreciate them and you appreciate their business and you appreciate the interaction you get to have with them.
Yeah. And if you're looking for a brainstorming place to start in terms of like, what can I do? And Melissa and I have rhymed off a bunch of things, but think of things in your own life. What are things in your customer experiences? Where have you bought? Have you purchased? Have you interacted with somebody that gave you the warm and fuzzies? What was it about that experience? And write it down and figure out if there's a way that you can replicate that in your own business in any way.
Yeah. Think about a business that you tell all your friends about.
Yeah.
And ask yourself, why do I tell them all about that they should shop there or that they should buy from this person? What's the reason? What is it about interacting with them that makes me want to tell everybody to go there? And that might lead you to some interesting conclusions and ideas.
Yes. And how can I be more like them, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What can I do? And it isn't about copying or any of those things, but it's about taking that positive, like, juice and making it your own and really, charting a path with a smile. With
a smile. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Heather. Thank you, as always, for being here this month. I look forward to seeing you in February. And we'll see you all next week, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.